Hello and welcome to the Weekly Reel podcast. My name is Ken,
And my name is Jeremy.
and this week we will be riding shotgun on Shai Halud.
Oh, no way. He actually has the popcorn bucket, guys.
Yes, I do. I do have the popcorn bucket because this week we will be talking about Dune Part 2. But before we get into Dune Part 2, wait a second. Wait, is that the Lisan Al Gaib? Lisan Al Gaib. Lisan Al Gaib. Sorry, I think I overdid it on the coffee so far. Actually, it's not Lisan Al Gaib. Maybe it is, actually.
Could be.
But he is a voice from the outer world, but his name is Jacob. What's up, Jacob?
Hello. Hello, everybody on the live stream. Good to see you guys.
Ooh, everyone. Do you guys remember Jacob? He was actually on our podcast just a few episodes ago, even though that last recording was in like July of last year, which was on the Oppenheimer. Because remember, he's a Nolan boy.
I am a Nolan boy.
Yes, he is a Nolan boy. I mean, I believe you were our very first guest for another Nolan boy movie, Tenet, way back in season 1 as well, right?
That's correct. That is correct. Yeah, and we did go watch that again. I believe you mentioned that on your last podcast, on the last stream, right? Am I wrong?
Well, we did. So
Right,
yeah,
right, okay.
yeah. I mean, we did go watch it, so
Mhm.
that was fun.
It was. It was.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice to relive 2020.
Yes, it was. I know. I feel like 2024 and 20 is just mirroring 2020, and so again, welcome back, Jacob, to the podcast. This is actually our first time where we have a guest with our live stream. And speaking of that live stream, we do have an audience, right, Jeremy?
Yes. So for everyone watching on YouTube Live right now, hello for one, but I encourage you to comment down below throughout the entire live stream. We have the double feature section, we have our real reviews, everything, guest Rotten Tomato score. So go ahead and if you have any answers, any thoughts that you want to include, go ahead and leave it in the comment section, and maybe we'll shout you out. Maybe we won't. I'm just kidding. Well, we will. As long as it's nice
Make it worth
and PG, yeah, for the most part. And yeah, make it worth it. And yeah, so comment as much as you want.
Yeah. So again, thank you all for joining us. And you know what? Let's get right into it. I mean, we're talking about a really long movie, a much anticipated movie because it did get delayed. And so we are going to now issue that spoiler warning. If you are weirded out with spoilers, you have our permission to leave the live stream. Or if you don't mind live spoilers, just keep chiming in on the live stream, learn a little bit about the movie. I hope you did watch the movie because then that makes this discussion even more fun, I guess. So spoiler warning, we are going to talk about specifics about Dune Part 2. And so this week we pick up right where we left off on the planet Arrakis, where Paul Atreides is among the Fremen seeking revenge after his people from House Atreides gets annihilated by House Harkonnen in the follow-up to the 2021 epic. Yes, we are talking about the latest and greatest from director Denis Villeneuve, Dune Part 2, which is out now in theaters. And so, guys, let's get right into our double feature. As a reminder, I have a question. These guys don't know what I'm going to ask. Jeremy, for the second half of this double feature, also has a question for both Jacob and I. And so, for my half of the double feature, let's get right into it. No dilly-dallying. Guys, what was your biggest or first takeaway from Dune Part 2 as you were walking out of the theaters? What was the thing that just you were thinking about? You were it's a thought that lingered in your head as you were walking out the theater. Jeremy, why don't you take this one first?
As everyone knows, Dune Part 1 was the best movie I've seen in a long time. I totally did not say last week that this would be my running joke, that I would love Dune Part 1 ever since I saw it for the very first time. But the first thought I had coming out of Dune Part 2 was, wow, things actually happened in this movie. And I was like, okay, we got drama, we got plot twists. There's so much that happened in this movie. It's not a perfect movie, but so much happens, so much interesting stuff happens. It actually felt epic. Like the visuals finally caught up, or the story finally caught up to the visuals, I should say. And yeah, that was like my ultimate first impressions. Was like, ah, things happened. Here we go.
Was there a scene? I mean, you were talking about like how you were just glad that you enjoyed it. Was there a scene in particular that was your favorite? I know we don't really do weekly reel awards anymore, but which was like your standout scene in the 2 hour 46 minute epic?
Okay, so it's not necessarily my favorite, but the first one that came into mind when I realized that I am enjoying this movie much more than the first one, which, I love the first one. So, was when Zendaya's character, Chani, was teaching Paul stuff. Just basically introducing him into the Fremen and all that stuff. It was very much Avatar esque. When I mean Avatar, I mean the Blue People Avatar, with like Neytiri and Jake Sully. It was very that much dynamic, but that's where I felt like I was like, oh, wait a minute. I feel like I'm actually enjoying this movie because I actually care about what the characters are doing and how they feel. So when because in the first movie, I had a little bit of issue with Paul, kind of his characterization in terms of how he acted around other characters. But when he was just with Chani in that scene, I felt like, oh, I'm actually caring. I don't think it was my favorite scene of the movie, but that's the time I realized, like, oh, I think I might actually enjoy this movie.
Nice.
What did you think about that dynamic between Paul and Chani? Jacob, why don't you join in on the conversation?
And that dynamic, I did honestly, especially with the first movie, I was looking forward to, watching that dynamic unfold in the first movie, especially considering how much I would say hype Zendaya got going into Dune Part 1 or Dune. And so now to see it kind of play out and on screen and not just through like these weird visions or random visions of specific moments in the first movie, I liked it. I think it was they progressed really well. It didn't seem like it was, rushed, even though obviously there was some time jumping in between. It didn't seem like there was a lot of time jumping, but obviously, there was a good amount of it just by how much their relationship had progressed throughout that scene. But I enjoyed it, especially, for the amount of the movie that they had a good relationship.
Yeah, I like how they kind of segue into it today. To also because you got to remember like throughout the first movie, and they kind of alluded. I mean, they had Jamas's like body like wrapped up in it looked like a kind of like a ceremonial wrap or something like that. But remember when they were about to go and he was gonna just be out in the desert to see if he was he would just survive or
Mhm.
whatever. You were in Paul's head, and you also thought that that person, that body was like some sort of hallucination with Jamis there in the desert, but it turned out to be Chani, and it just unlocked this great chemistry between the two. They were both likable, and I definitely want to shout out Zendaya for just being her normal charismatic self, and it shined through. You were immediately fell in love with that character. If you didn't like Chani, this movie wasn't for you.
Yeah, definitely.
She was definitely one of the main characters. If not, like, it's by the end of the movie, it's like, oh, she's kind of taking over.
Yeah, she was
Right.
the most consistent character that you cared for the most, in my opinion.
Yeah. She really stayed true to who her character was, like especially in terms of character development. obviously that's up to the script writers or to the story writers, but just in terms of kind of her keeping true to herself and her culture and stuff, you kind of it was at a good level all the way through.
Right, right. Jacob, why don't you take my double feature question? What was your biggest or main takeaway as you were walking out of Dune Part Two on your I think your lone screening so far, right? You've only seen it the one
Yeah,
time.
only seen it the one time. I did watch it in IMAX, so I guess the very first thing was, wow, that was loud. But I honestly, right when that movie ended, I was kind of thinking about what's gonna happen in the next Dune movie, and kind of really just like looking forward to whatever that's gonna be, because I would say that it kind of left it off at a minor cliffhanger. Like, even though, like Jeremy said, there was a lot that actually happened in the story in this in part two. I think, obviously, considering how long the story goes in terms of the books, you're kind of looking forward to see, what's gonna happen next. So I think, yeah, that was the only thing. Honestly, I wanted to see a spoiler, but I mean, not spoiler, stinger. But yeah,
Mm.
I understood that's probably not gonna happen.
Yeah, like I guess I guess like for me, like there were a lot of things that I kind of took into effect as far as my takeaway. There was like so many thoughts, I guess I should say. Obviously, it sounds like I'm like confused as far as whether I was trying to figure out what was going to happen, what just happened, and for me, like the my main takeaway was, man, they somehow got Paul to be so likable in the beginning, and then in the end, it just turned out to have that Anakin like kind of story arc where he became, I guess, power hungry, or he was very calculated and cold. It seemed like when you look back on stuff like that, he used Chani and the rest of the Fremen and their, I guess, their them wanting to believe in this ultimate Messiah figure, and it made somehow made Paul like unlikable after just 2.5 short hours. It was
Because he listened
crazy
to
how they were able to
Thanos,
do
man.
so. Yeah.
He's like, you use that. They believe in you. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, he's like, oh, I'm going to listen to Thanos.
Yeah.
And then he turned to the dark side.
Well, at least he didn't listen to Thanos and try to snap about 50% of the population away. That would kind of suck for the people, the Fremen.
True, but he did take away half of Johnny's heart. So,
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
that he
bro.
did do. I feel like, going off what Ken said, it was when he drank the water of life, the worm poison basically, but
Ew.
um like, and they were kind of talking about it too in the movie, about how he saw that there was like one clear way that he could get what he needs, or finish what he needs to do. And so I think that since it just became clear to him exactly what he needed to do, then it kind of flipped that switch in him where he's like, okay, like, I have no other choice but to do it this way.
Um,
Yeah.
very much Anakin style right there.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
true.
I feel like a lot of the shots that were used too, like the dark looking like hood thing, he just looked
Hmm.
more menacing by the end of the film. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you guys felt at the end of the I guess the one-on-one battle with thing. And we could talk more into detail about that, but in terms of like the aftermath of that duel, um I don't know about you guys, but it was weird cuz we're supposed to we've been following Paul this whole time now for two movies, and it seemed a little bittersweet that he won. Yeah, he killed Austin Butler's character Fade Roth or whatever his name was. But at the same time, it's like, oh man, he really did Chani and the rest of the Fremen dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, he did because he went full Anakin in that last scene,
Hmm.
and Yeah, that battle was much better than the one-on-one battle in Dune Part 1. And like just his interaction with Christopher Walken at the end too.
Oh, making him
Yeah.
kiss the ring.
Yeah. Even though Christopher Walken, when I was looking at him, like, why does he look like a grandma at 3 a.m.? but but then when he was like, "Oh, he's pretty much like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you and marry your daughter." I'm like, "Damn."
Yeah,
And they cut to the shot of Johnny on the sidelines. I was like, "Oh, shoot."
Yeah, that was tough.
that was a tough watch. I really just felt for. Oh man, kudos to the different shots that Denis Villeneuve used during that, because man, the reaction shots from Zendaya were so good and just so heart wrenching. Basically the last 30 to 40 minutes or whatever it was from the time that final battle started, probably some of the best third act stuff like I've ever seen. You got everything. You got action. You got like acting. You got like a crazy one-on-one, like hand-to-hand comp. You got literally everything. Political chess moves and everything. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so good.
Because that the reaction shots from Zendaya and stuff, it's like she didn't need to say anything to know exactly what she felt compared
Mm.
to uh George Lucas and Padme in Revenge of the Sith. Anakin, you're breaking my heart. Like, oh, I could tell.
Like, oh, I thought you were enjoying this.
You're going down.
You
the
will
path
not
I
turn
can't-
her against me.
You will not take her from me.
You have done that yourself.
Oh man,
See, that's why I'm hoping. I secretly have this wish that Paul goes full on Darth Vader in the third one. That would be nice. I don't know if they're gonna do it or not though.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't really even know what the story of Dune is, so I guess if you've read the book, don't say anything.
Yeah, because someone actually told me, it's like, oh, I actually read the books, and the first book is actually just setting up the second book. I was like, oh, that explains a lot.
Because these first two movies were just basically the first book, right?
Oh my, yeah.
yes. I
Okay.
think the next one should be based on the next book in the series. I want to say there's 6 books total.
Okay.
All right. 12 movies.
By the way, Sean Tierra said main takeaway of the film was that I was never Ryan Gosling. I was Paul Atreides the whole time. Well, Sean, Ken's just Ken. So he's Ryan Gosling of the podcast.
Or Simu Liu.
Yes.
But yes, both of them, Ryan Gosling and Paul Atreides, they're actually working for the protagonist.
Yep.
Yeah. Who's the
This
protagonist?
whole thing's a pincer movement.
Between Barbie, Tenet, and Dune Part 2.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. My half of the double feature. I don't know if you guys are ready for it.
We're ready.
All right. Because I was thinking about all the character arcs. We mentioned a couple already. In the first one, we got introduced to characters like Paul. We had Johnny and the visions and stuff. She didn't show up till the very end, so she didn't really do anything. We had Gurney, who survived, and he's there now in Dune Part 2. We also have Dave Bautista's character, which does a lot of screaming most of the time. Which, he's never done in a role before, looking at Drax and Guardians. Thanos! Dude. Which another thing we'll talk about a little bit later, I think. Or briefly. But I wanted to ask you guys, who had your favorite character arc so far in the Dune franchise? If you had to kind of put them together, because these movies ultimately are like a TV series, kind of way they structure it, it's like, no wonder it's kind of slow in certain parts, because I can see them cutting this up into like hour-long episodes, and it's like a long TV series. But for you guys, starting with you, Ken, who had your favorite character arc so far? Don't say Duncan. What's his name?
Duncan, Idaho.
Yeah, Duncan, Idaho.
He only had
Aquaman. He wasn't even in this movie.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. His,
Don't say
his,
that.
His arc literally got cut in half. With apologies to Paul Atreides, I think I want to say Stilgar, even though he's a one-note character.
One note. He's like,
Listen,
I think yeah, that's his only line in the entire movie. He says it like 20 times. Son of Gaib.
that's all he needs to say, man.
Oh man, I you know what? I don't even want to steal this. That's not my real answer, by the way. But Jeremy, you gotta make the comparison between Stilgar and one of our other favorite movies from what was it, 2022? Of who Stilgar reminded you of. You shared that with me post Dune Part 2.
Yeah, we were still sitting in the post credits, during the credits, not post credits, but during the credits, and I mentioned to you, I'm like, oh, isn't Stilgar basically the Pedro Pascal Javi to Nicolas Cage in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent? Because he pretty much is. He's like, oh, you are the, what is he called again? I don't want to say the wrong thing. The Lizan
Al Gaib.
Al Gaib, whatever. I'm like, oh, he's effing Nicolas Cage.
Well, the way even he was just looking at him, he was
Yeah.
like, man, find you a bestie, a significant other that looks at you like Stilgar looks at Paul.
Seriously. He's like his biggest fan in the world. And oh, I was dying when during that final fight, when Paul gets stabbed and they have that reaction shot of Stilgar. I know it's supposed to be a super dramatic scene, but he's like, it's like super like crushed more than like Chani.
Yeah.
And then
More than his mom.
more than his own mother. And when Paul was actually able to kill Rautha, and he looks around at everyone like, oh yeah, he won. It's like, oh, I knew he would win.
I knew he would win.
I knew he would win. That's the
I think my
that's the look.
favorite Stilgar scene was, I'm pretty sure this was in part 2, but when he was trying to explain to him like, you are Lisan Al Gaib, and then he was like, it's not what I believe, I'm not him. And then he's like, even Lisan Al Gaib is too humble to say he's Lisan Al Gaib. And then everybody's like, yeah.
He
I
goes,
was dying at that part.
Yeah, he goes, he ends it with like, even more reason to know he is.
Yeah.
I love it because he has the whole posse behind him too.
Yeah. They're all like, oh yeah.
Which I was like in our viewing, Ken. Like no one else was laughing, dude, in our theater. I'm like, this is the most hilarious stuff since Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Bro, you know what? It wasn't just our theater because, you know, our first showing, even opening night, was a little empty. It was like maybe more than half empty. I went
Really?
to the next day, I went to a Dolby IMAX full Friday night viewing. And I was literally the only one cracking up during all of the reaction shots. Literally the only one. I was like, what is wrong with you guys?
I think in my viewing, we watched on Sunday afternoon in IMAX at Daly City. And I think, especially at that part where I mentioned, you know, he was saying, yeah, he's too humble to even say that he is. I don't know if I was just laughing a lot or if I heard some other people laughing too, but I'm pretty sure there were a few other people laughing in there.
Okay.
Oh my God. Oh
At
my
least some people have a sense of humor. Damn.
Yeah. We just went off on a tangent. Well, to answer your question, sorry, real quick. I didn't want to go into the whole Paul as the main thing because I'll leave that for maybe for you guys to I kind of want to hear what you guys think. For me, I will say the Bene Gesserit like as a whole, because it was pretty crazy that, you know, they basically revealed that they don't care who's at power. They're just literally going to hedge all their bets.
Mhm.
They're going to like send one of their their James Bond's wife to hook up with Elvis and try to carry his baby, and then obviously they already got Baron's they got into the Harkonnen section, and that whole reveal that Lady Jessica is the daughter, right, of Baron,
Right.
played by Stellan Skarsgård.
Yep.
So they basically just have in their they have their hand in whatever pot, and they're just literally playing puppet master. And it was pretty cool to be able to see that whole plot or their motivations kind of unfold.
True.
I can see that. Yeah, I was they're just all moving in the shadows, just like they know everything that's going on. They have a plan for anything that happens. And
Mhm.
then, but in the first one, you're like, oh, this is the plan that they have is for Paul Atreides. But really, you find out it's kind of like they're behind like anything that happens, they'll have a hand in it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of curious who else they're gonna try to set up or hook up with or what um, in future movies, especially since most of them are, well, they're pretty much all women, and I think it. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I feel like they made it seem like people people who take that poison or whatever, the what was that blue fluid
Water
that
of
they were
life.
yeah, the
The
water of
water of
life.
life.
They were the only ones that can handle the poison. And
Yeah.
when Paul was able to survive that, obviously with an assist with Chani's tears and everything,
Tears of the
spring,
was it? Tears of the
desert spring, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that was already like an anomaly, I think. And so, yeah, Bene Gesserit.
Yeah, that's a good one. Hmm.
Yeah, definitely a good one. It very much went full like Game of Thrones, especially when Lady Jessica revealed it's like, oh, she's pregnant with like Paul's sister, and
Mhm.
Paul had a dream of like his future sister. That was crazy.
Anya
Which
Taylor Joy.
was yeah,
Anya
I was
Taylor-Joy.
like, wow.
Furiosa.
Queen's
This
Gambit.
this is all a prequel to Furiosa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll get Chris Hemsworth later. Not Chris Hemsworth. Yeah, Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
We'll get
Uh-huh.
Tom Hardy later on playing Mad Max.
Yeah, see, Mad Max just takes place on Arrakis.
There you go. All right, how about you, Jake? Who had your favorite storyline?
Well, I think I'll just have to go ahead and take the Paul Atreides slash Lisan Al Gaib slash Mod what is what is it?
Madib
Madib Usul
Usul.
Usul Madib slash Kwisatz Haderach.
Whoa.
Dang.
And I have a list here. I didn't just memorize all that. Don't worry.
That was a lot.
But just like we were talking about before, seeing the way his character basically after he took the water of life, the way his character flipped, but then also kind of seeing him go from like what Jeremy was talking about in terms of how kind of emotionless his character seemed like in part 1, and then that kind of leading into part 2 as well in the beginning, and then you really start to see a softer side of him in the beginning of part 2, and then he really turns into like the Anakin Darth Vader where he's just like laser focused on his goal of becoming the emperor and just obtaining that power. And I mean, I don't even know what the goal is at the end of the day. Like, what is this one thing that he's trying to do, this one path that he sees? But I
That's it.
think, yeah.
Just kidding. I don't know.
Well, at least he didn't complain about the sand on Arrakis being coarse.
Rough.
Rough.
Gets everywhere.
And getting everywhere.
Sorry,
What was that from
we
again?
interrupted you.
No,
Sorry.
I'm trying to remember what that's from.
Wait, seriously?
Think about it a little bit. Come on, man. It's coarse, rough, and gets everywhere. There's
I
a
forgot
little
about-
sand in his hand.
What is that from?
Oh, man.
Oh my god, he does it really. I thought you were just kidding.
No, I thought, yeah, I know it. Okay, we're gonna just tell you right now, man. That was Anakin.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
You were talking.
You were the
about
one. You were the
Anakin.
one talking about Anakin.
Oh,
I thought
that's
you
right,
might.
That's right.
I thought you were gonna put that in your notes or so and use that somehow.
I completely forgot about that line.
Yeah, Attack of the Clones. That's why.
Yeah.
That probably makes sense.
Ah, so good. So
Such
good.
an underrated movie. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding. Movie
It's
was
an
really good.
iconic line. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
was. For all
Maybe
the
even
wrong
more
reasons.
iconic than the movie itself.
Yeah.
Sean also says, "I'm sorry, the mom was annoying." I think he's talking about
Lady
Lady
Jessica.
Jessica,
Yeah.
Reverend Mother.
Reverend Mother. Remember when she got all like demonic?
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. I was about to
That's
say
what
that.
I-
Actually, I actually enjoyed that because then it added another dimension. I felt like it added a little bit of horror aspects to the not horror. Sorry, horror.
Well, yeah, with the Bene Gesserits, you never know.
Yeah, exactly. But it added that kind of element to this whole sci-fi epic sort of thing. You know, like I was like, oh, it's very very versatile. I was kind of
Yeah.
scared. And when he was, especially when she was talking to her unborn baby.
Yeah.
Oh,
Holy.
yeah. You got some Conjuring vibes up in here.
Uh-huh. I was like,
Yeah.
is this lady crazy or is she like some type of weird spirit thing?
Oh man.
Turns out she's both.
Did you guys hear about Dune Part 2 or like the latter half of Dune book spoilers in terms of like the differences between the book versus the movie with Aaliyah, the sister?
I have
No.
not.
You
I
have
didn't know
not.
she had a
Okay.
name.
Should I mention this here?
Mm,
I mean, because I
know.
don't, it won't affect the future because they actually straight up made a decision to switch it up.
Okay, yeah. In my
So
opinion.
so she is actually born in the book, the daughter.
Okay. In the first
She's like in the first book, and so she's actually alive as like a young baby, but then she has like all of the powers or something like that. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But she was the one who ends up killing the Baron instead of Paul.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But then
Baron
they didn't want
Harkonnen.
they didn't
Okay.
want some weird like all powerful baby killing. So I was like, oh, I think Denis Villeneuve made a good choice in because I feel like if they had Aaliyah killing the Baron, I feel like that's unearned. Whereas at least we had almost 2 full movies where with Paul wanting revenge on the Harkonnens and
Right.
he being the one to stab him in the neck. It was pretty satisfying, I think.
Yeah. I think
was-
this actually leads perfectly into me answering my double feature question. Because, we had visions of Chani in the first movie. And I obviously enjoyed Paul's character arc. I love the Anakin going to the dark side type of development that he had. But I also like Chani's story where she basically had to wrestle with like, oh, she's fighting for her people, but she also loves Paul. But then she has her heart broken by Paul by the end, but she's still doing her own thing. She has to stick loyal to her people and what she believes in. And how that the first movie teased that, but we never got it.
Mhm,
And now part 2 teased Aaliyah's character played by Anya Taylor-Joy. So I'm hoping in the eventual third movie she gets a good character arc in that movie. So I like the change that you mentioned, Ken, because like you said, unearned. If they just rushed it there at the very end, they're like wrapping up. Like everything is going around and revolving around Paul, but everyone's also doing their own things, and so hopefully they're it doesn't feel like any one character takes too much time.
Yeah.
I think that's what the balance of this movie. It balanced the characters really well in this movie.
I I definitely agree with that. Yeah. I mean, was there anything else anything related to the double feature before we move on to the next segment? Oh, all right. Let's get
I don't think
into
so.
our fairly new segment, which is called the Dailies. This is actually a segment where we have more kind of uncut, random thoughts that we want to bring up. Jacob, since you are our guest, I'll give you first dibs. Anything that we haven't touched on yet that you want to talk about?
Yeah, definitely. I personally think when we found out that Paul and then or Jessica and in turn Paul were Harkonnen, were descendants from the Baron, I was like, what? It literally blew my mind because that kind of led you to even more insight into how much the Bene Gesserit are really involved in everything. And yeah, that really blew my mind. I was sitting in my chair like, is it wait really? And then started calling each other cousin. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And then but yeah,
Jeremy,
that
oh
go
sorry,
ahead.
Jeremy saw my reaction when that reveal happened. I was legit like mind blown.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah. That was like, and not even that they're just like distantly related. Like Lady Jessica is literally the daughter of the Baron of
Mhm.
Baron. Yeah. That was just like mind blowing to me.
I was like, man,
And
this is straight up Game of Thrones stuff now.
seriously, like the plot's kind of going like this and like that and like that. You think it's gonna go this way, that goes that way.
Yeah, I didn't actually expect them to kill Routha at the end too.
And really
Really?
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
Thanos
Thanos.
for Carmeria or whatever its name is.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was wait. What's Bautista's name?
Ro-
Robin,
Robin, yeah,
Robin.
Robin,
Rabin,
Rabin.
Batman, Robin.
R- Beast Rabin. That's his name.
Yeah, they killed him too fast though. Thanos like just killed him.
Yeah, he might as well
Very.
have just snapped his finger
Yeah.
Seriously.
or used the gauntlet.
I thought it was gonna be like some at least like pretty cool fight scene, but no, it was just all right, he's dead.
I know he
Yeah,
was
they
literally dead
totally
in.
just nerfed Bautista's character in this movie.
Oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
like 5 seconds into that fight, it was over.
I mean, I feel like in the whole movie they just made his character seem like he had no clue what was going on or how to. He was just like a lost character. Like in
So
the
like
first one, I
Drax.
feel he was, yeah, literally like Drax, just no
Yeah,
idea what to do at all. And then when it came time to fight for to the death, he died in like two moves.
yeah. Dude, plus he was humiliated having to kiss his brother's feet, like
Yeah,
literally.
yeah,
My
that
goodness.
too.
I actually have a question for you guys.
Okay.
All right, so we eventually find out that Paul, um, uses I guess strategic moves, to eventually be betrothed to Florence Pugh's character, Princess Irulan, which is who's the daughter of the Emperor, right? Christopher Walken.
Hmm.
Do you think that was his plan all along, or do you think remember how like in the beginning he was all like, yeah, the Fremen should like lead themselves or whatever. I am no Lisan al Gaib or whatever. Do you think
Hmm.
he genuinely switched up, or do you think he actually that was his plan all along? He was kind of sandbagging everyone, and playing like a kind of a long con.
Ooh,
That's a
do
good
you want to go
question.
first, Jake?
Yeah, I'll take it. I believe I'm pretty sure it was in the beginning of part two, but it could have been in part one. I watched the two movies on the same day, so it's a little mumbled and jumbled within each other. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that he talked with his mom about that, about having to or being able to marry the daughter of the emperor so that he could become emperor. Right?
Yep.
Did it?
That
Right?
was in the first one.
Right. Okay. That's what I thought. So I feel like he that was like on his mind a little bit. Like he knew that it was a path he could take, but then once he was able to see the future and see that there's only one way to do what he needs to do, I think then he's like, okay, so this is what we have to do. So I don't think he was necessarily sandbagging in the beginning. I think that his whole like mindset and I guess personality also kind of switched right when he took the water of life.
Hmm. Jeremy?
I think it's about the same. It's not. It's less Avatar and more Star Wars. uh, you know how in Avatar, Jake Sully goes in there with the mind,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
purpose of actually taking down the what's it called? What's their tribe name again? I forgot.
Fremen. No, I'm just kidding. I forgot
Uh,
already.
I forgot the blue people. And Anakin, he figures it out along the way. Do it, and then he does it. Um,
Didn't
and
someone say
so,
do it? Who said that in this movie?
oh yeah, it was pretty close, right? I
Yeah.
feel like someone did it,
Someone said do it.
or maybe that was just us during the movie. That
Just-
was like, oh, kill Elvis or kill Christopher Walken. And we're like, do it.
Do it.
Um, but I feel like he kind of was like Jacob said. Like once he drank the water of life, something changed in him. He like got seduced by the dark side because he knew those options were there the entire time.
Hmm.
But I feel like once he got a taste of like, oh, people are actually like really bowing to me,
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
gonna take advantage of that.
Yeah. Do you want to read Sean's response before I get into mine?
Yeah, he said Paul knew he was gonna bag Princess Arugula. Got the dog in him for real.
Arugula. It
it's-
sounds
So
pretty
he
good
knew
right now.
from I the only reason why I know it was part one was because I watched a 5 minute recap of Dune part one before watching part two.
Oh
Okay.
man. Yeah, I mentioned this to Jeremy, obviously offline, but I was honestly gonna send him a 2 minute recap because I came across one the day of our screening, and I was like, should I send it to him? Nah, he probably watched it, and I was only 40 minutes right. Oh man. Well, to answer, I guess the question I was thinking, I don't know. I feel like it could go both ways. I feel like Denis Villeneuve um did that on purpose because I feel like there are certain like key checkpoints where it's like you could kind of interpret it the way either way. You know what I mean? Like I'll just use the one aspect of his house ring where he puts it away in the beginning and it's like, oh, he's really trying to adapt to being part of the Fremen and, leading a rebellion, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden, when he's doing his Khal Drogo speech with the Fremen in the South or whatever, and he puts it back on, he's like, oh, I'm Lizan
Mhm.
El Gaib. I will be pessimistic, and I feel like he was playing the long con the whole time.
Dang, I would like that though.
I
That'd be
think he's
pretty
just
epic.
ruthless. I think, remember, they were kind of leaning into the whole Leto Atreides being too nice, and he was dumb or whatever. And I feel like, I'm sure he had heard like rumblings from even within his own house or whatever, or rumors of what they think and perceive his dad to be, and he wanted to be nothing like that. Um, he wanted to be the one.
Oh yeah. Didn't they call him the one also? And then I thought he was like Neo from the Matrix.
Yeah, that's what they would say in when they were speaking the Fremen language, whatever it's called.
Oh man.
They're like, he's not the one, something like that. I don't believe you're the one.
Yeah. Um, Last thing I kind of wanted to bring up, unless you guys have anything.
Mm,
How
No.
about
one thing
yeah,
I'll say,
yeah,
or maybe a couple things, but they're
Okay, go
quick.
ahead.
go for it.
The Harkonnen scenes in part two, I was like pretty weirded out by it. just
Just
the.
this movie? It
I
was
mean,
weird in
I
the
feel
first
like
movie.
I don't know. That's why I also think I need to watch this again to really get what was going everything that was going on. But just like you kind of got to see, how they all live extended beyond just what the Baron was doing. and it was just a little odd to me. And like the coloring was like really added to the black and whiteness, really added
Yeah.
to like the sense of the eeriness of kind of what their people are. So that was
Yeah.
a little weird. And then another thing is that I'm still confused as to what Jessica's motives are. Like, is she on the Bene Gesserit side to where she wants to kind of, make their motives start going? Or is she like, does she have her own vision of how everything's going to play out in her head, especially when she's talking with her unborn child? Or I'm just like, where? Because sometimes you see her, the way she reacts, it's like, no or yes, but then everything's kind of going according to her plan, but also not necessarily according to the Bene Gesserit's plan. So I'm
Jeremy,
like,
do you want to take
yeah.
any of those two dailies?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to tie this in with Sean's comment because he said Bro's on his Anakin arc, might even do his own Order
Or-
66 in
Order
part 3.
66.
When,
Execute order.
yeah, Lady Jessica, right? She's talking to her baby and all that stuff, like you mentioned, Jake. I have this theory. All right, hang on. I have this theory where, like, I believe that Paul is the actual bad guy, or he's the antagonist when we've been building him up this entire time, like Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader. And by the end of part 3, like Sean said, what if he does his own Order 66, kills the Fremen, freaking Thanos is on his side. But then a baby is born on Taylor Joy in a new trilogy of movies where she's actually the protagonist, and then she has to take down
Hmm,
um, Paul Atreides.
interesting.
Ooh, yeah.
And but then she doesn't know it's her brother.
I
It's
feel like she would know.
impossible.
I feel like she would know,
Yeah,
like
probably.
thing, but I feel like that's where I feel like they're going as well. I agree. I
I
feel
can see
like
that. So
because
by the time that, because the vision where we saw her as, Anya Taylor-Joy playing the unborn child, there was water on Arrakis.
hmm
So does that mean that the Lisan Al Gaib is, doing what he said he was going to do in terms of turning Arrakis back into a paradise? And then
ooh,
maybe like, you know what I mean? Like, is he like also doing some of the good that he said he was going to do? But then maybe he's not, I don't
Because I
know.
feel like they're going the Anakin route where, oh, we think he's the chosen one, but the
Mhm.
actual chosen one is Luke,
Right.
who's like the next generation. And I think they're just doing that with Paul, where it's like, oh, Paul's the chosen one.
yeah.
But then remember the Bene Gesserit, they were saying, oh, you need to give birth to a daughter or something like that. I watched the 5 minute recap of Dune Part One. I remember what they said, and
That's true.
so they were saying, "Oh, you need to give birth to a daughter, and she's the one." So
Oh.
I feel like the Bene Gesserit got it. They got it right this whole time.
Yeah.
Interesting.
To address Jacob's second point with Lady Jessica, I feel like she was kind of using the Bene Gesserit like like their ways, their ancient ways of, she was being a team player essentially, but I feel like that one other mother or whatever, the one that was I guess teaming up with the emperor,
Mhm.
I feel like she in a way didn't like how she was condescending towards her, and so she's like, I'm gonna beat that biatch. No, I'm just kidding. You know what I mean?
That be Reverend Mother.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think she just has like this thing where now she wants to be the Bene Gesserit, like the main
Right.
one, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be, like back my son, and you know what? We're gonna take over, the world or whatever."
Mhm.
So yeah,
And maybe that's why the Emperor wanted to kill the Atreides. because he knew that they were so power hungry and could get to this point to where they, you know,
Well, I feel like the Reverend Mother was kind of advising the Emperor. It's like, and because she probably saw that Atreides kind of thing, and that's why they wanted to kind of cut them off. But that
uh,
actually, obviously they failed, and it still happened anyway. Because I felt like she was the one that kind of got neutered at the end. Because remember, she put her backing behind the Emperor. Now the
right.
Emperor's just kind of powerless at this point.
But even when she gave her backing to the Emperor, she also was trying to protect Lady Jessica and Paul at that, like during the first movie, right? And then even in the second one, where the daughter was like, "Oh, what if he finds out? Or what if Paul Atreides is alive?" And she's like, "You mustn't tell anybody."
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like they're now on opposite sides with the whole
Yeah.
silence. I was like, oh
Uh huh.
shoot.
And she was like, "What did she say? Blasphemy."
Yeah. Let's quickly end this segment with one sentence description of "May thy knife chip and shatter the duel." Jeremy, go ahead. What were your thoughts on that, real quick?
On
The
that,
the final duel between Fade Roth and Paul.
I mean, one sentence. It was better than the Jameis Winston fight.
Jameis Winston. You gonna eat a W?
Yeah.
Jammy.
Yeah, that was better than a sand hallway.
Yeah.
I agree.
Jacob.
So I thought it was a pretty cool fight. I would have liked to see it go on a little longer than just like those two choreographic scenes and then leading up to that ending part there. I'm pretty sure it was like they had like one section where they fought and then Paul like fell or something and then they fought another section and then that kind of led to the ending of that fight scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to see it go on a little more because I feel like Fade Rotha was hyped up quite a bit in this movie and like how crazy he was, how good at fighting he was. And I just kind of wanted to see it a little more fighting from him. Even though we did get a good amount when they were on what's that planet? Is it called Harkonnen also? The planet that they live on?
No, they live somewhere else. I forget what they're
I
what they're
don't know.
called.
I remember it was like Harkonnen City or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. But I would have just liked to see him fight more because I feel like he's like that guy that just, kills everybody except for Paul Atreides, obviously.
Yeah, but was he really that good of a fighter if they had to drug all like the
Oh, 2 out of
Atreides?
3. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 out of the 3, and then
That
he
is
could
true.
he kind of not barely that one guy, the
Hmm.
malnourished Asian guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he
But
could
then
barely
you have
take
to
him.
remember that the Atreides are some of the fiercest fighters
That's
in the
true.
galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Atreides.
Yeah, Sean's one sentence was Austin Butler's character was so zesty
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
for a
He
guy with no
was
eyebrows. I agree.
Um, for my one sentence, I was like, I feel like that may have been the most memorable hand-to-hand combat since John Wick last year. Was that? There hasn't been anything since, right?
Hand to hand.
That was pretty good. I like how everyone shut up too. You just heard like nothing
there's no
but
music. It was
yeah,
just the fighting noise
yeah.
effects. That was good. It's like the focus was solely on this fight.
Yeah, and Stilgar's reactions.
Yeah.
That's like I knew it.
I knew the bro was gonna win the entire time.
Oh man. All right, let's get right into the next thing. We have this new segment called The Real Review. Jeremy, and I kind of screwed up last week. I forgot this is a spoiler-free review. So yeah, sorry about that last week. But anyway, Jeremy, what is your real review for Dune Part 2?
Okay, for me, Dune Part 2 is the Dune movie everyone has been waiting for. I believe it actually meets expectations. While it may drag a tad, like in the middle of the movie, uh, I don't want to say what because no spoilers. Almost every aspect is improved upon in part two than it was in part one. If you love the part one, though, you'll love this one even more. And if you didn't like the first one, give this one a shot because stuff actually happens in this movie and it's actually pretty good. And I'm giving Dune Part 2 a 2580 out of 3,086%.
Wow, that should have just been a 3,000 in your scale, your Dune scale. That basically was a 3,000 in the Dune scale. Dude, there's no way. Do you remember what you gave Dune?
Probably somewhere in the 50s, probably like 52 or something. I don't I don't think we've ever had like a movie had this type of jump from the first one to the sequel or whatever, where it went from 50 to 86 for me. Yeah, if it wasn't for this podcast, I should have put this in my review. If it wasn't for this podcast, I probably wouldn't have watched this movie because of part one.
Oh man. Just before I get into my real review, one of the things that I was kind of watching before the season started was I once in a while just kind of watch some of our old videos that we do come out with, and one of the ones that I was watching was my top 5 most anticipated movies of 2023. And at the time, it was supposed to come out in October, if I remember correctly, and so that made my list only because of this podcast episode, because I just wanted to see the variance again between the possible variance between your opinion and my opinion, or whoever our guest would have been. So yeah,
There you go. Because Sean said, round that up, boy. How could I round up 500 points?
that got to be 3,000.
That gotta be 3,000. I was like, dude,
Shit.
86 is like good score. Plus, I didn't cry during this movie. So,
Oh my goodness.
That's a good
Well,
one.
he also mentioned may as well been 4,000 because we got more queens and Dea, so we take those.
we gotta keep it to 3,000, you know?
Yeah, Sean be simping for Zendaya.
I know. All day, every day.
Oh shoot! All right, well, for my spoiler-free real review, the Dune franchise weirdly mirrors the Game of Thrones series with my personal consumption. Back in 2011, I actually bailed on Game of Thrones after one episode, only to be convinced later on in season 1 to keep watching because it gets good. Yes, we did a podcast on Dune Part 1 back in 2021, which I liked but never felt the urge to rewatch. But fast forward to 2024, and after watching Dune Part 2, I can honestly say it got good, and I am 100% in on the Dune franchise. Dune Part 2 felt epic with its pacing, its attention to detail, its scope. We got to shout out Denis Villeneuve. I just want to keep practicing saying his name. The storytelling, the writing, the acting. Shout out Timothée Chalamet for that amazing Paul Atreides story arc. And of course, our current GOAT composer, Hans Zimmer. We didn't even mention him in this episode yet. Hans Zimmer turns out another classic. But Dune Part 2 makes me appreciate Part 1 so much more, and it has me looking forward to the third theatrical installment of the Dune franchise. So with apologies to Madam Web, Dune Part 2 has set a really high bar for movie of the year so far in 2024. I'm giving Dune Part 2 my highest recommendation to watch on the largest format possible. And I am giving it on the I Love You 3000 scale a 2880 out of 3,000, which is 96%.
Dang, that is a high score.
That is a
Damn,
good
okay.
score.
Yeah.
Good
So
one.
we've gone and did our real reviews. Jacob, we don't expect you to do a real review, but on the scale that we have come accustomed to on this podcast, the I Love You 3000 scale, how would you rate Dune Part 2?
So for Dune Part 2, I would honestly give it a 2700 out of 3000, which puts it at a 90%. And just a couple spoiler free things about this movie. Definitely go watch it. The slow parts, like Jeremy said, are slow, but if you have it in you to pay attention, it really makes a big difference in understanding everything that's going on. But yeah, I definitely recommend anybody who hasn't seen this to watch it. And who knows, maybe watching the second one will make you want to watch the first one.
Yes. Well said. I feel like we're in unison in terms of liking this movie. Obviously, there's a little bit of variance in how much we like it. I don't know. I just find a lot of commonalities between this, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, that sort of thing, with these epic, very detailed type movies. And so I think I don't know, I just kind of shill for these type of movies. I was a little worried after Dune Part 1. I was a little disappointed in the first one, but now I see. Now I see it.
You drank the water of life.
I did, and you know what? I survived. I survived. That was a weird scene, right, Jeremy? That was like your weird thing with the little baby sandworm.
Yeah, okay. Well, like, I didn't want to say this like in the theater, but remember the baby sandworm? It reminded me, I don't know if you watched The Boys.
Oh no.
Okay, I'll just leave it up there. If you watch The Boys and she had the baby sandworm wrapped around her, I was like, oh, it's giving flashbacks to The Boys.
Season 3, right?
Yeah, Mother's Milk.
Oh.
The episode title.
Bro,
yes,
shoot.
that episode. So,
I need to do a rewatch before June.
So,
Season 4. Anyway, let's get right into our next segment, the Guess the Rotten Tomatoes score, where we're on the honor system. We try to guess what Dune Part 2 got. We are just starting off our season 7 competition. I'm currently up 2-0 in this very early on in this season. And this time we have a guest. So, Jacob, I know you're not necessarily in this competition, but for kicks and giggles, what would you guess the Rotten Tomato score is for Dune Part 2?
So for full transparency, I did see the Rotten Tomato score, like what it debuted with at least.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know what it's at now. But I would guess that it would probably settle at around 92%
Okay.
on the Rotten Tomato score. A very, very fresh movie still, but I think it would settle around there.
Yeah, it actually is in conjunction with your I Love You 3000 score, which is the most important rating. Right,
Most
Jeremy?
important.
What would you guess?
I actually guessed your I Love You 3000 score. I guessed 96%.
Oh, man. Well, I guess we are going to, I don't know. It's anticlimactic because, I mean, it's not a coincidence, but my guess is also 96% because, I was like, I figured it's the same. So we both get the point this week, no matter what. But do you want to reveal what the actual Rotten Tomatoes score is?
Yes, the Rotten Tomatoes score is... Oh, that's just you. Oh,
oh, you had it.
There we go.
Boom.
94%. Still working out.
Oh, we would have all split.
Oh, yeah.
We were both, or well, all three of us, I should say, we were all off by 2.
Wow.
Oh, see, Sean guessed 89.90.
Oh, we would have kicked Sean's butt. Sorry, man.
Sorry, Sean. Oh, that's just you again.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. Hey, we're still trying to figure out this StreamYard UI. And, I mean, Jeremy's doing a lot of the heavy lifting with the productions part. So, to update the competition for Season 7, since we tied with our guests, we actually had the same guest. A little anticlimactic, but we both score a point. I'm currently up now 3-1, heading into next week. There's your segue, Jeremy. What are we covering for next week?
Yes, next week after Bay and Bay B. I actually
Yeah,
forgot. Is it
I think
B
it
or
is B.
Bay?
I think it's
B,
B.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoops. After B and Ben have a great first date in rom-com fashion, things do not work out, but they are soon reunited at a wedding and things get messy. Their plan to fix things: pretend to be in a relationship with each other in Anyone But You, starring Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney. We're gonna do whole 180 from the super epic sci-fi down to a rom-com. Very
Right up our alley.
right up our alley, yeah. So I remember, Sean, if you're watching, you said cover Anyone But You. We got you. We know already. We got you.
Yeah,
And
we
by the way,
got you.
Sean also said waiting for Deadpool 3 to get that number one spot of movie of the year. Well, stay tuned for part 2 of the episode, by the way, because
Yeah.
you'll hear some other about future movies this year.
Yes. Stay tuned. But yes, I'm looking forward to talking about something a little bit more lighthearted. I know both Jeremy and I have seen it already, but I'm looking forward to actually, dissecting the movie. I wasn't really fully paying attention, so I probably missed a lot. Jacob, have you seen Anyone But You?
I have not yet. I really want to watch it, but I know Jeremy had mentioned to me off stream that it's not streaming anywhere unless you rent or buy it. So
Yes.
I might just have to wait a little longer, but I don't know. We'll see. I do want to watch it though. It's been something I wanted to watch, ever since it came out, but just really never got around to it.
Yes. Yes. I think I got lucky in that one of my friends actually bought it. And so I'm
Ah,
like, oh, okay, I can watch it for free. But yeah, I'm gonna have to rent it for next week. So, um, Jeremy, like we have this whole new platform that we have now that we've incorporated for season 7, right?
Yep. So we are currently streaming live on YouTube Live. So if you want to look us up on YouTube, just search up the Weekly Reel podcast. We'll show up there. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you know when we'll be up live. And, we usually put up little reminders when we're actually going to stream, usually about a week ahead of time. So you can plan out your day, go get dinner, and we'll show up on time. We promise.
Yes. Also, follow us on Instagram at Weekly Reel. We usually put podcast links. We put links to this YouTube little thing that we have, our live stream, as well as the a little bit more polished videos that we do release the following Mondays as well. But also, we put links for the main podcast apps like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But we're also available wherever you stream podcasts. But yeah, that's the sort of thing we post on Instagram. We also post, random clips from the main episode. Also follow us on TikTok at Weekly Real Pod. That's usually where we we post our exclusive content. We'll put some soup du jour stuff. I feel like those are the more fun videos. So follow us there at Weekly Real Pod. So before we close out, there was one thing that I kind of wanted to get your guys' opinion on. Um, I don't know if you heard, but there was a lot of buzz with Fade Roth, Austin Butler being the best villain since Heath Ledger's Joker. I'm not sure if you heard any of that, but what were your thoughts just on his character portrayal overall, real quick?
Go
I
ahead,
can go.
Jacob.
Yeah. I think it was I think his character portrayal was really good. Like it disturbed me at times of not necessarily how good it was, but how creepy it was.
Mhm.
Um I do, like I said, I do need to watch the movie again because I feel like there are some aspects of it, especially during the Harkonnen scenes, about just kind of missing a few things here and there, especially that pertain to his character. But I mean, I think he did a really good job just making it really, really creepy to a point where you're like kind of disturbed by him every time he just pops up on the screen. I mean, especially with the way like his character looks with the no eyebrows and just weird
No
looking.
hair. No hair.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
I think it was portrayed really well. But to say, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't really think of, great villains right now. So
Thanos.
that's true. That is true. But I mean, this is like Thanos was kind of like built up and it was more of like his power, but not necessarily him. You know what I mean?
Mhm, mhm.
But yeah,
So, you know what I mean? It was like kind of like it was like built up like this is who this guy is instead
mhm.
of it kind of just like letting him play out the character as and just him doing all the heavy lifting himself as Thanos. But off the top of my head, I can't think of any better ones, but I'd say that there's a really good chance that that might be true.
Mhm. Jeremy?
I would have to disagree. Uh, I would say he's pretty serviceable, better than serviceable, but like, um, yeah, he had that creepy factor, but I think that's just a culture of like the Harkonnen. With
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
I always had found what's his name, the Baron,
mm,
Yeah.
like much more disturbing to look at.
Oh,
um, and I think that's where it trickled down in the bloodline.
yeah.
And to me, he was just like a psychotic frat boy, you know?
mm.
Like he would, kill his women and do whatever with whatever. And but then again, he also got taken advantage of by James Bond's wife, Lady Margot.
Yes.
So yeah. And to be fair, it's not like he had the most screen time.
Yeah.
So he with the screen time he got, he was good.
Yeah.
And but I wouldn't go as far as to say that he's up there with Oscar level
Yeah.
Heath Ledger
Definitely.
in that performance.
You basically said everything I was about to say. I think the only thing that you didn't mention was I did appreciate how he sounded like Stellan Skarsgård. Wait,
Oh,
Stellan?
I think so.
Is that him? Oh, but yeah, the Baron, essentially. I enjoyed that part of his character. But yeah, I think he was a little overhyped with recency bias. Recency bias. So couldn't agree more. All right, let's
Would you say that
Oh good.
one more thing? Can you think of a villain that was better than him since Heath Ledger's The Joker?
Mm,
Better? Like I even
Mm-hmm.
like Zod more in Man of Steel.
Mm. I can see that.
I'm trying to remember.
yeah, I don't know. You're putting us on the spot. I can't think of anyone right now.
They have villains. Uh, besides Thanos, Wenwu.
I mean, I want to say Javier Bardem, but then
Ah.
that was before what you
Mm.
call that was '07, I think, in No Country for Old Men.
Oh, I was gonna say Javier Bardem in Skyfall.
Oh yeah, no, he
Mhm.
was good there too. I just really want
True.
to end this podcast on a Stilgar note. But yeah, maybe we may address that in part two. At like in the comments section, we'll see. But to close out part one, and Jacob, you're sticking around for part two, yeah?
I am sticking around for part 2.
All right. Well, again, to our live audience, stay tuned for part two. We'll have that going in about 5 or so minutes. But before we close out our episode on Dune Part 2, check out last week's episode 112 on Argyle. It's currently streaming now to watch on YouTube. Again, subscribe and click that bell for notifications on new content on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Also, it's also available to stream now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And then, as Jeremy mentioned, next week we are covering Anyone But You. So feel free to rent or purchase the digital copy of that movie. I think it's a pretty entertaining watch. So, and also, I mean, you could just join in on the live stream and be an active participant like our boy Sean on the chat. And so, guys, let's wrap up part one. For those that are here for the main show, we'll see you next week. On the reel.